and took a risk, but you just missed. Now you carry that shame. Don't believe the lies that well up inside and flood your eyes, telling you that you failed. I wish you would sing, I wish you would sing. 'Cause we need to hear a story that only you can tell, and you tell it so well. And the only way the enemy wins is if you close your mouth. There's so much power within if you sing out loud. I wish you would sing, I wish you would sing. We need to hear the story that only you can tell, and you tell it so well. I wish you would sing, I wish you would sing. 'Cause we need to hear the story that only you can tell, and you tell it so well. You're running from your shadow, but it goes wherever you go. You're running out of time. Everybody out there has got it all together. You're feeling left behind, and you'll never measure up to the standard you set up for yourself, for yourself. Don't you know it's okay to be broken? You're looking in the mirror, and all you see is terror, so you isolate. But what if all that fear was a compass meant to steer you to something great? And you'll never know if you never go for yourself, for yourself. Don't you know it's okay to be broken?
Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's Tuesday, and it's a snowy day. Isn't this nice, the snow behind me? I thought it was kind of fun and clever. Not really clever. Maybe just fun. Hello to everybody on the chat. If you can let me know that you can see me and hear me, that would be helpful. And yeah, we're going to dive in pretty quickly. If you've never been to one of these before, my name's Joe. I run Home Studio Corner, which is a place where I help frustrated musicians make sense of this recording stuff and release and make better music. And I do a weekly podcast where I answer questions, and that's where you are. We actually stream it live, and then it gets recorded and posted on YouTube and in the podcast world as well. Everyone can see and hear me. Tiki loves the beard. You have good taste. Yeah, so this is some footage from the snowfall this morning. We got about 4 inches or so, which is pretty pretty remarkable for Nashville. So that's fun. And yeah, so I haven't really done much today. So this is y'all have gotten me to be productive. So thank you for that. All right, let me get this silly video out of here, and let's get into the hard work of making a podcast. As you probably know, I do an intro for every episode, a silly intro. And what's fun is we mentioned and teased about it, you guys sending me intros. So actually, just as I was about to pop on, I checked Facebook and got this. See if it'll import. Oh, it won't. It won't because it's a. Let me try. Let me just change the extension. Use M4V. That'll work. Import video, detach audio. The things we do. Did that work? It didn't seem to work, did it? Detach the audio. That didn't work. Let's see if we can change it. Can we change it to just MP3? Would that actually work? Probably not. I'm going to try it, though. Could not. Well, stinker. Ben, I had your thing here. Hang on. Let me just record it in. I'll just record off of the I'll just record it from the board real quick. Hold on. Let me just record this in. Board. What is this? Channel 31 and 32, I think. Is that right? Check. You know, I can't figure it out. So I had an intro from Ben Holmes, and it was sweet in his British accent, but I can't import it because of silliness. Let me try one more thing. He sent me, it's a video file, but it's just audio, but it won't bring in. Oh, that's too bad. Will it play? That stinks. Hang on. I'm going to figure out a way to record this. Actually, I have an idea. Hang on. Oh, yeah. I can open with QuickTime. That's the easiest. Good idea, everybody. Thank you. And then just export it as audio. Export to audio only. See, y'all are smart. So this first part is the most anticlimactic part of the whole thing, where I put the intro together. But it's just, otherwise I'd have to put it together before y'all come on, and then I wouldn't have help from all of you and solve my problems. So see, we're all in this together. Okay, let's see if this worked. It doesn't want to take it. It says it's an Apple audio. Come on. Well, that's embarrassing. I have one other option I can try. Let me I'm going to mute my mic. This will actually work. I use ye old audio hijack. So, hang on.
Good day everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Ask Joe. Now here's your host, Mr. Joe Gilder.
Mr. Joe Gilder. Oh, I love it. I want to do a Michael Caine intro, but that's way better than anything I would have done. So Audio Hijack has the option to record whatever I'm spitting back into the computer. So hopefully that worked. Now where'd the file go? It's in the critiques folder. See, there it is. Okay, now look, we finally did it. That took way longer than it should have. But there's Ben's audio. if I had this session as an old template, if I had it set up right, I could have just recorded that directly in, but I forgot which inputs it was. I didn't want to troubleshoot it, which probably would have taken less time. So apologies. I know I'm taking too much time. Let me just EQ this just a smidge. Don't you know? Started finally using this favorite section for the Studio One plugins, where it saves the 8 or so plugins that I use all the time.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Ask Joe. Now here's your host, Mr. Joe Gilder.
Little 500 hertz, take it out.
Good day, everyone.
Yeah.
And welcome to the latest edition of Ask Joe. Now here's your host, Mr. Joe Gilder.
I know it makes us sound shallow, Americans, but there's just something fancy about a British accent. I know. I maybe you like being called fancy. I don't know.
Gilder.
Okay. All right. So we've got our intro ready to go. Now we actually start this whole thing. So let me start the recording. Hide myself for a second, and we'll do this thing. Okay. Turn off my heater. I don't get to be warm.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Ask Joe. Now here's your host, Mr. Joe Gilder.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another rousing edition of the podcast. Yes, we had a guest intro, and if you're interested in making an intro for the podcast, I will happily consider using it. I can't promise I'll use it, but I can promise that I might think about using it, and I think that's pretty good. That was our good friend and faithful Ask Joe attendee and VIP member, Ben Holmes, who, as you might have guessed from that intro, is not an American. He lives over in the UK. So, Ben, you're awesome. That was hilarious. I think my name sounds way better in British, so I might just refer to myself as Joe Gilder. Just in perpetuity forever. Thanks so much for being here. Today is a good day. It's a snow day here in Nashville. We got actually snow day yesterday. No, day off yesterday is Martin Luther King Day, and then today it snowed like 4 inches, so the city shuts down. No one's in school. All my kids are here, so things have been noisy here. And then they already canceled school tomorrow. So Pam, say a little prayer for Pam, as she has had all the children for many, 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 many days now. But I didn't really work this morning, so I kind of hung out some and took them out sledding, etc. And yes, I must acknowledge Tiki Horea, another faithful Ask Joe-er, had the suggestion of folks submitting their own intro. So, Tiki, congrats. All these folks over in Europe are coming up with all the good ideas. They're kind of putting us Americans to shame. So, let's get some good American ideas going here. I see a lot of good, familiar faces here. If you've never attended, if you're watching this video or listening to the podcast and you've never attended one of these live, it's really fun. Aside from when I do the intro at the beginning and totally can't figure out how to get the audio into Studio One, look who looks like a professional. Other than that, it's actually a really fun time. We hang out, I answer your questions here live on the podcast, and then we usually hang out for a while afterwards. It's on Tuesdays at 1 p.m. Central Time. That's the same as Chicago, although I'm in Nashville. And every Tuesday, 1 p.m., you can actually subscribe to my calendar, homestudiocorner.com/calendar. That'll get you, you can put that into your phone. It'll ping you 5 minutes before we go live. I don't know, who here in the chat actually uses that calendar? I know like one of you does, and I have no way of telling other than you've told me. So I'm just curious if that's a thing or if I've just do that for absolutely no reason. But for me, it helps for me remember to show up. So I guess that's still pretty good. All right, so what I want to talk about today is there's a lot of things bouncing around inside my brain. Biggest one, and it's something I posted over in the Dueling Mixes forum yesterday, this idea of do you position yourself in a way where someone can come around and give you a swift kick in the rump when you need it? What I mean is, do you put yourself out there when you have a goal or a thing that you want to do you actually say it out loud? Do you tell anyone about it? And then do you even invite those people to hold you to it? One of the big cool things that's come from doing Home Studio Corner now in its 10th year, I think, is I have all of you when I say things like, I'm going to write 50 songs in 12 weeks, or I'm going to release 4 EPs in a year. You are regularly asking me, hey, how are those EPs coming along? Hey, how are those songs coming along? And it's really motivating and really fun. And also, I get angry at you sometimes because you challenge me on things that I said I wanted to do. And when I'm feeling lazy and don't really want to do them, your challenge comes at a good time. But, I get a little ticked. I'll be honest sometimes. But it's good. It's a good ticked off, right? Kind of the same thing happened the other day with my wife. I had told her about some things business-wise that I wanted to do more consistently in 2018, things that I kind of tend to let fall off the radar and don't do very well. And she looked at my calendar. I had planned out the month and said, hey, sis, I don't see the things you said you wanted to do, or I see them, but you pushed them off to the end of the month and you had said you didn't want to do that. I feel like you're not keeping your word on that. I did not like it when she said that. And as it's conflict and all that, but it was really good for her to say that. And we were able to kind of say, you know what, you're right. Could you maybe help me reconfigure that and think through that a little bit more? So when it comes to music and studio stuff and the things you've been saying you're getting around to for a really long time, what are some of those that you can do and who can you invite into it? Boom. That music starts and I think, oh, I've got plenty of time to wrap up this thought. And then next thing I know, I'm just saying boom in the middle of a sentence. But we'll get there. Hashtag boom. So it looks like a lot of you, well, a fair number of you do actually use that calendar. If you have that calendar and you look right now, if you don't see today's Ask Joe on there, you're on the wrong one. I had to redo it a few months back, so make sure you're subscribed to that new one. But yeah, I'm glad to see that some of you use it. Who knows how long Google could shut it down one day, but right now it lets me post a public calendar, and that's super cool. I'll try to put more stuff on there. Like, I've been doing a few of these. I did one live songwriting session last week that I just did spur of the moment on Facebook, and it was really cool. I've done videos where I write a song from start to finish, but I've not done it live like that. It was terrifying in a good way. So be on the lookout. I might throw some more stuff in that calendar. I don't want to overuse it because I realize it's intrusive if I do. Okay, so let's jump into your questions. If you have questions for me about really anything you might be dealing with that you think I might be able to help you with, obviously in the realm of music and audio, but we can also talk about business and snow if you'd like. I have a lot of it right now. But ask that in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer, and we'll do this. I've started kind of going back to making these 30-minute episodes, getting through my spiel at the beginning really quickly, so we have a good solid 24, 25 minutes to just dive into your story and to help push you along where you need to go. So I'm going to jump into the questions. I will say when you're in the chat, it kind of just flows by as the more you're talking to me and to each other, so I will miss questions. I won't get to all of them, but I'll do my best. If I don't get to yours after a good chunk of time, feel free to post it again. Just don't get all spam-tastic on me. Let's see. There was one about the SM7 I just saw. Let me start with that one. And, of course, I lost it. Did you delete it? Wait, there it is. Ruben Hernandez says, Are you going to or have you gotten your Shure SM7B? I'm guessing you mean fixed. I haven't. For a long time, it had a buzz, and the gate that I use for this podcast pretty much made it where you couldn't hear it, but then I started to hear it. It could be a simple soldering thing. I don't solder, and I don't have that skill set. But no, it's sitting right behind you in that closet. I just need to get it done. This mic, the AKG D5, pretty good mic. We use these at my church for just vocals. And I like it. It's not the best. I miss the SM7. I just have to, make time to do that. It's not something I feel is super top priority, but it probably should be because it's a great mic. And it looks better. Looks are important. Will Paxton says hi and that I'm super dope. What's up, Will Paxton? Tress Seaver. Is it Tress or is it Trey? I feel like we've interacted enough that I should be pronouncing your name better. So let me know, Mr. Seaver. It says, before calibrating, wow, my chat is bouncing like crazy. Before calibrating your monitors, how do you calibrate your SPL app? I don't. I know there's a lot to learn about calibrating. I literally, when back when I calibrated my monitors, I just searched for a free SPL app. Oh, I got a text from Graham Cochran. Hi, Graham. I got a SPL app, just something free. And then I literally, at first I was thinking, okay, you hear all the people say you need to mix at 85 decibels, SPL. I'm thinking, all right, fine, great. And then I got the thing out, and even if it wasn't accurate, 85 was stupid loud, like uncomfortable. I couldn't sit there very long. So maybe they were talking about live sound, or maybe people really mix at that volume, and that's why they're all going deaf. But I wanted something much more reasonable. So given that it was an app and not super accurate, I set it up in my mix position on like a music stand, and I just played some music and got it at a volume that I enjoy. That's loud enough to hear things, that loud enough to feel a little bit, but not so loud that it's uncomfortable, at a volume where I could mix for hours and hours without getting fatigued. And it registered around 69 to 72 dB is kind of where it landed that felt right to me. So then I based my calibration on that. So I would have, I forget how I did it. I would run pink noise at a certain level inside my DAW, and then have that with the master fader at 0 and the pink noise at -20, I think was the volume. I wanted that to all be hitting that 69 to 72 decibel volume, which means when I have a mix that is hitting -20 on the meter, or if it's a K20, K-system metering, K20, when you go from that 0 mark from where it's green to yellow, that's, I think, 20 dB below clipping. So you have 20 dB of headroom, essentially, which works out really well. I never have to worry about clipping my mixes when I start them there. So I basically just said, okay, I want 20 dB of this average pink noise volume to be about 70 dB volume to my ears coming out of my speakers. And at this point, I don't even look at that meter very much anymore on my mix bus. I put my mixing fader in the same spot. I have the volume on my speakers in the same spot. It's all been calibrated. And then I just turn up the faders. And if all the faders turned up are way too loud, I don't turn the speakers down. I don't turn the fader down on my mixer. I turn the tracks down in the software until they're at the level I'm used to mixing. Helps me mix more consistently. It helps all my mix bus processing. If I have presets that are already there in my template, they're ready to receive something at that volume, and it all works out real nice. So if you've never done anything like that, I actually have a series of, I think it's a video or actually like a PDF guide where I walk through that in much more detail and probably explain it way better than I just did. But that's available to my VIP members if you want to check that out. It's in the archives. A couple years back I did that. And I literally set it up a couple years back, 2 studios ago, and I left it. I haven't touched anything. I leave it. That's just how I mix, and that's my setting. I just pray that these speakers don't die. They're not amazing, but they're mine, and I don't want to have to recalibrate and relearn new speakers. So if you want to be a VIP member, it's super cheap and super awesome. It's homestudiocorner.com/VIP. And a thing I don't talk about much, if you sign up, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, if you go and add to cart, it'll actually give you a month for free. So you won't have to pay for the first 30 days. So you can go check it out for free right now. So check that out for sure. All right, Milchin Stuff says, is there any reason to learn the Nashville number system? I know basic music theory, and I'm totally fine with reading sheet music, so is there any reason to learn it? I would learn it. I find it to just be an easy form of charting out songs. So for me, I use it because it makes my life easier. When I'm charting a song to record, I mean, first of all, I'm in Nashville, so all the players that are playing on the session will know that system. But it's really helpful also if I've done the chart out and then I'm playing along and it comes to tracking day and I realize, you know what, I charted it in D. We really should play it in E. You could either just visually transpose that in your head, which is fine, or it'd be even easier if it was all in numbers. I just scratch out where it says key of D at the top and write E, and I'm off to the races. Or if I'm playing with a capo and I'm deciding, okay, we're going to play it in the key of E, and then I'm going to play one pass through with the capo on the 4th fret. Well, guess what? I'm playing in the key of C there, and instead of having to write a new chart in C or remember, okay, C is, the E is the 1, and I'm playing the 1 in C here, so when it's A, it's an F. That's a lot more mental gymnastics than just having numbers. I know I'm in the key of C with my hands, so I just play what the numbers say on the chart. So if none of those sound like things that you would do or that would be helpful for you, then no, I don't think Nashville numbers makes much sense for you. But if there's the possibility of playing on a session or getting to play anywhere where that might be introduced, I think it's worth becoming familiar with it. I also would argue it makes you a better musician because it helps you to hear. You may think, okay, this song does D, G, A. And the only way you remember that is, I just remember that it goes from D to the G to the A. And that's fine. But if you knew it as, if you saw DGA and you thought, oh, that's 145, that's a different part of your brain, or not really a different part of your brain, but it's a different way of thinking about it that I think would make you a better musician. So instead of saying, this song goes from D to G to A, you say, oh, this goes from 145. And you could think later when you're writing a song in the key of G, you could be like, well, I could do G, C, D, and that might have that same feel as that other song I really liked that went D, G, A. It's just, it exposes you to more musically, and I think that's always a good idea. It's kind of like when I was growing up and learning guitar, I pretty much just taught myself. I would look at the chord, the lead sheets that my parents had. They had sheet music, and it would have the little chart above that showed me where your fingers go to play this chord. So I just slowly and painstakingly figured out the chords and started to learn how to do them. And I had taken piano lessons, so I knew basic piano, like quarter notes, half notes, rests, and eighth notes, and all that stuff, dotted notes, all that. But when I went to college and had to take a couple of semesters of music theory, I just loved it. It was like all the stuff that I knew intuitively from just playing guitar started to make sense. And that's kind of how I feel about the Nashville number system. It makes the music, it gives you a new vocabulary for the music and makes you a better musician, in my opinion. Jonathan Nosp says, Joe, when using guitar pedals, do you have any certain ones you like to send through the input versus the effects loop? That's a huge debate among all fancy guitar people. I don't have any sort of amp that has an effects loop, so I put everything in the front end of the amp. I did play around with that a little bit using the 11 rack because it does have an effects loop that behaves much like an effects loop in an amp. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's usually bigger amps with like a head and a cabinet, they have a loop for effects that comes after essentially the overdrive sound of the amp. So you could run into the amp, get your overdrive sound, and then send that sound out to your reverb and your delay. So typically like distortions and things like that on the front end, delays and reverbs and maybe modulation stuff after the overdrive is the idea. I tend to, when I'm using pedals in a guitar amp, run something like my Fender Deluxe Reverb pretty clean, and so all my drive tone is coming from that blues driver pedal anyway. So I'm essentially running it that same way. I've got my overdrive tone, then that's going into delay and reverb. So the end result is about the same, but I am running it all into the front end of the amp. But most people would say that's kind of the traditional way to do it. You could certainly try all sorts of other approaches. You could run delay before your distortion. It may produce a cool sound, but then there's also a reason most people tend to put delay after. So something to think about. Gabriel says, to use the update project feature with the summer. I don't know what you're talking about, my friend. Oh, I see. It's a multi-part question. Studio One. New to Studio One. Where's the mastering project page take the mix export from? He needs to print the mix in real time using an analog summer. If you're doing that, then you can't connect the mix and project page, really. It's done offline bounce. It goes and bounces the song internally and then brings it into the project page. The only way that really works is if you print the mix onto a new track and then solo that track and then save that session and then use that as your session for bringing it into your mastering file. At that point, you've kind of lost the point of having the connection between the song page and the projects page, or the session page and the mastering page. So I would say doesn't really matter at that point. I would just probably manually bring them in. It is cool the way they connect. I don't use analog summing. I don't use outboard gear that I have to run through in real time. So I just don't. It's not a problem I've had to face. But I love keeping things in the box, and the way that it updates saves me so much time when I'm doing the job of mixing and mastering, which is what a lot of us are doing. John says, what is the most important plugin or type of plugins when it comes to mixing? The most important plugin is the one you know how to use. So the basics would be, in every mix I do, I probably have an EQ, compressor. There may be a multiband compressor on the mix bus sometimes. I know some people say that's a bad idea. Delay, reverb, a couple different reverbs maybe, and a distortion plugin that I will throw on things as needed. That's it. Which delay, which EQ, which compressor? For me, a lot of times it's the stock plugins in Studio One. I am able to get a good mix with those because I know how to use them, and I know the technique that you need to make the mix sound good. The tools are important. You need good tools, but I would rather obsess over getting new guitars and amps and sounds and keyboards and things like that and new percussion things that inspire me to make music. A new EQ just does not inspire me to be creative, so I just don't use them. I tend to use what I've got, and I get the mixes I want. And to me, the thing that makes it get better or worse is when I've done something better or worse on the front end, not on the back end with a fancy new EQ. But if you want to dive into that world, I won't stop you. I will say I interact with a lot of people doing music in home studios, and I hear regularly people who've gone down the rabbit trail of kind of the addictive behavior of buying plugin after plugin, wasting. I mean, one guy told me it's $20,000 he spent on plugins until he finally realized he was not getting good mixes with any of them because he wasn't good at mixing. Once he had that light bulb moment, he turned around, went really simple, and then they got better that way. It's kind of a progression. The fancy plugins don't do you much good if you don't know what you're doing. Once you know what you're doing, you could probably take advantage of the fancy plugins, or you might just stick with what you've got because you're too busy making music to worry about what's the latest plugin. People always ask me, what's a great new blah, 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 and I just don't know because I don't really pay attention, aside from maybe PreSonus and what they've got new, which, by the way, they just announced today that the DAW mode is out on the Studio Live, at least a beta version, so I got to check that out. I'll be talking about that in future episodes. But other than that, I don't pay much attention because I'm too busy doing my music, making music, using what I've got. That make sense? Okay. Great. What's in my tumbler? Coffee. Black coffee. Just to be real American, since we had that nice tea-drinking British opener. Love you, Ben. Mark says, when I connect an external preamp to my Studio Live 24 Classic, should the gain on the mixer be all the way left or set to unity? Well, the cool thing about those, the original Classic, which is the one I had before this one, it has a line input. So make sure you plug into that, the 1/4-inch line input, not the XLR mic input. And then it will still have a trim control. So then you would set it to unity, which is essentially it's going through some sort of an amp, but at unity, it's not adding or taking away any level. It's just a straight line input. They give you that because sometimes you need a little extra boost, or maybe you're really driving that preamp to get a certain sound, but it's clipping the input of the mixer, so you could turn it down. I've done that before on accident and got a really cool sound. So yeah, set it to unity and then kind of go from there. And you're kind of setting your levels based on the meter on the mixer with that input set to unity, and then using the output of the preamp to kind of set your level going in. What are your thoughts on reamping? I think I love the idea of reamping. I almost never do it. I actually bought one of the light blue X amp or whatever, the radial product for reamping. I bought one. Was super excited. I don't think I ever used it. For me, it's probably a laziness thing. Part of it's probably it's just not something that I love to do. But I prefer to just get it right on the front end. Like even when I use this laptop and I set it over here, plug it into that keyboard and run MainStage, which is just a set of just simple virtual instrument keyboard sounds, I don't use MIDI. I use MIDI to trigger it, but I don't record MIDI into Studio One. I record it with audio cables out of that interface into my mixer, and that's how I get my keyboard sounds, just like if I had an actual keyboard that I was playing. That's just the way I like to work. I like backing myself into that corner and just playing it in. Same thing with guitar. There are occasions where I might add a delay after the fact if I'm just not quite sure if it fits the song. But otherwise, delays and reverbs, if you go listen to my EP Fighter, all those guitars, there's lots of reverb on those guitars. That's all in my pedal board. That's the sound that we recorded. I mixed it a little bit. I may have added a little more reverb to some of the parts, but that's pretty much the sound. So for me, reamping can be great, and there are people who do it and do it well. For me, I know a lot of people will record a direct signal and think about, I'm going to reamp this later, and they use that as an excuse not to worry about getting good tone today. If you have some sort of catastrophic thing happen where you forgot to record the amp, you just had the wrong input selected, and all you've got is a DI signal, but the guy played a great part and he's moved back to Australia and you live in Washington, D.C., then yeah, it's great that you've got that DI track that you can then reamp and save the day. I don't do that. I probably should sometimes, but I would just rather put a mic in front of the amp and get the sounds that we want. You're not wrong if you do it the other way. That's just my personal preference. Just like some people like Les Pauls and some people like Stratocasters. I'm a Les Paul 335 humbucker guy. I'm probably not good enough to be a Strat guy, although I bet I have a sneaky suspicion I would love a Strat if I got one, but I'm just not a Strat guy. Doodle-doo-doo. What would you ask to one of your favorite mixers and engineers? I would want to know what their biggest struggle is in their current state of having achieved whatever level of success they're at. I want to know what their typical, not what their typical day looks like, but what triggers them to feel inadequate, insecure. Like, how do those manifest themselves at that level of success? Because we all have this idea, and this could be crazy, but you may even feel that about me. Like, you're watching me do things on YouTube, and I look like I know what I'm doing, so you probably think that guy just knows what he's doing. I have crippling insecurity all the time, and I think we all do. I've known people who have lots of success in the music world, and they are just as insecure about what they're doing as I am on a given day. I think it's a part of being creative, but I think it's also just a part of being human. So I would want to know, and they probably wouldn't answer and be uncomfortable with the question, but I'd like to know, like, hey, Chris Lord Algae, what keeps you up at night? Not what keeps you up at night. That's not really it. But what do you struggle with when it comes to success and your strengths and weaknesses and insecurity and all those things? How does that manifest for someone with so many obvious wins as you have? Because we have this idea that if you get so many wins and you reach a certain level, just it's all a bed of roses, Care Bears, and rainbows. And it's not. Like, we know deep down it's not. And I'd like to hear more of that from the people up top, because I think that I would feel more connected, and I'd also feel more like, okay, I can get there too. If this guy's insecure, turns out being not insecure is not the secret. It's what you do in the midst of and in spite of that insecurity that really matters. Really good question, though. Spiro says, I'm often having trouble with finishing projects, and as a result, I probably have 100 unfinished songs. Any tips on reaching set goals? On the other hand, I'm really good at starting projects. I took a personality test years ago, and I don't remember what it was, but I was an I. I don't even know what that means. And it said one of the characteristics was great at starting things, bad at finishing. And it could have been a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point because I was pretty young, but it seemed true, and it has proved to be very true for me. I'm great at starting stuff. I get excited. I get all in, and I'm bad at the consistency and the follow-through. Part of it's just your personality, but you have to kind of figure out ways to shore up those weaknesses. You don't need to focus all on your weaknesses. I think you focus on your strengths, but obviously if you're not finishing anything, that's like a catastrophic weakness that needs to be fixed and repaired. One of the things I talked about at the beginning of this episode was, who do you have in your life that you tell your aspirations to and then ask them to hold you accountable? That's a pretty powerful thing, whether it's publicly on like social media or a friend or your spouse or girlfriend or whatever, boyfriend. That can be a really powerful thing, but you also just needs to be a decision that you are going to keep a commitment. Because what's happening is you have all these unfinished projects, and I would bet that these are projects that you are doing for yourself. Like, this is your music, your pet project. It's your own thing. And if this was a project for somebody else, I'm guessing, especially if they had hired you and paid you money to do this project, you wouldn't have left it unfinished. But for some reason, when you do projects for yourself, you don't hold yourself to any sort of a standard, and you give you're too lax with yourself, and you give yourself too many breaks. I think you have to, and you may think it's just not a big deal. I think of other people more highly than myself. Well, maybe, but I think it's you don't take yourself seriously enough, and you don't respect yourself enough. So, in learning how to love and respect yourself, that means you got to keep commitments to yourself. And that means you pick one of those projects that's not finished and don't work on anything else until it's finished. Sometimes I kind of punish myself in that way. If I've gotten too scatterbrained, even this week I did a little bit of trying too many things at once, I will stop and I'll say, you can't work on anything else until this one project is finished. Like finished, done finished. Not close to finished, not almost finished, not, wow, I made a lot of progress, now I can take a break for 3 weeks finished. I mean, done. You can check the box that says this is done. Now, real life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes you do have multiple things going on at once, and that's fine. But the more you can, especially if you're in this kind of place where you aren't finishing stuff, and you've admitted that, you need to pick one, and you need to literally pick a studio project, and you may not touch anything else in your studio, work on any other project, even like for just 10 minutes until this project is done. Because what you'll find is it's going to be difficult. You're going to be like sitting there for 5 minutes, then jump on your computer or your phone and get on Facebook just to escape because it's pressure and you don't like it. But once you push through that and finish, it is an amazing feeling. Whether it turns out great or not, just the fact that you finished it is a great, great thing that I'm guessing you haven't experienced. And the more you experience it, the more likely you're going to be to push through and actually get to the finished project. And the more you finish, the more you will finish. It's this great feedback loop that just keeps you moving in the direction you want to go. So those are some ideas and strategies, but you gotta decide if you want to do it. Do you want to do this or not? If the answer is no, great. Sell your studio stuff, go buy a boat, enjoy sailing, or, become a really good bowler. But if music is really the thing you love and are passionate about, then do it and finish it and get in there and make it happen. It's a great, great question. Thank you for being honest. I think a lot of us could use a little more honesty in our own lives. Last question. Ben Holmes says, Ben, who did our intro, says, is there one thing you would like to get better at in relation to HSC or studio work? I would like to get better at planning ahead and working on bigger projects that take more time and people. My default is to kind of hide in a room and do it myself. I'd like that to change. I'm out of time. See ya. I'm not going, y'all. You know it's time for the after party. Woo woo, after party, after party. Oh, I don't have any good after party music, but let's just assume we're having an after party. I missed a bunch of questions, I think. So I've got a few minutes here. Let me just make sure this recorded. Okay, I had a brief moment where I thought I forgot to record. I know that wasn't true. Let's normalize that sucker. Let me just check this level real quick, lest I forget.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Ask Joe. Now here's your host, Mr. Joe Gilder.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to another rousing edition of the podcast. Yes, so when it comes to music and studio, who can you invite into it? Boom. And working on bigger projects that take more time and people. My default is to kind of hide in a room and do it myself. Question, Ben Holmes says, Ben, who did our intro, says, is there one thing you would like to get better at in relation to HSC or studio work? I would like to get better at planning ahead and working on bigger that to change. I'm out of time. See ya. That's great. I barely got that see ya in there. Let me make sure this isn't too loud here. That music starts and I think, oh, I've got plenty of time to wrap up this thought. And then next thing I know, I'm just saying boom in the middle of a sentence. But, we'll get there. Hashtag boom. So it looks like a lot of you, well, a fair number of you do actually use that calendar. If you don't see, so if you have that calendar and you look right now, if you don't see today's Ask Joe on there, you're on the wrong one. I had to redo it a few months back, so make sure you're subscribed to that new one. But, yeah, I'm glad to see that some of you use it. Who knows how long Google could shut it down one day, but right now it lets me post a public calendar, and that's super cool. I'll try to put more stuff on there. Like, I've been doing a few of these. I did one live song. Okay, I think that's good enough. Good enough for a podcast. You got to know when to let things go, right? It's just a podcast. Yes, it needs to sound good because I'm doing audio, and if it sounds like garbage, then of course I'm hurting myself. But just good enough. It's not unlistenable. We're good to go. I want to try to find your questions that I missed. If you want to, tell you what, if I missed your question and you really want me to answer it, I don't know if I'll see it if I scroll up. The chat's being glitchy, so I can't scroll smoothly. So here's what I would like you to do: ask your question again, and I'll answer it now. It won't be on the podcast. This is like bonus time. Jason says Strats are a must-have. I bet they would be for me. I think I like to hide behind a humbucker because you can just go loud and it covers up that you're not super great guitar player. I think that's where a lot of that came from. My first real electric that I really played music on was a humbucker. I like the idea. Honestly, I like the idea of humbuckers. The idea that it was thicker, like even just conceptually thicker and higher output. I thought that's what I need. There was no other reason than that. When you send a song to DistroKid, do you set it to as 44/116-bit? I think so. I think they ask for 44/116-bit. I do send them WAV files. It may be 24-bit, but I think it's 44/16. Oh, scratch that. Reverse it. It's 44/116. I think it's just Redbook standard, which is what you would print on a CD. So that's what I give them. I'm almost. You know what? Let me check. Survey says yes, 16-bit 44/1. I was looking at a. I did. My dad is a singer. He has a really deep bass voice, but he's been writing all these like a cappella tunes that he wanted to record, and he was here for that. Remember the eclipse last summer that came through Nashville and the rest of the country? He was here for that, and we sat down and recorded a bunch, and then I kind of forgot about it. And so I finished them for Christmas and gave them to him as a Christmas present, which means I put them on DistroKid for them. So if you want, how do I say this? They're like kind of like a cappella Christian hymns that he wrote. Just him singing with some reverb. But if you want to hear it, go look up David Gilder on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon. Check it out. His voice is so deep. Maybe I'll get there one day. It's like down here. Anyway, okay, let's get to questions. Any tips on recording tambourine? I really like ribbon mics on percussion because they take away a lot of that stuff that chops your head off. If you don't have a ribbon, a dynamic works well. Other thing, don't get it so close that you catch the wind from the tambourine. Other than that, just getting a good tambourine's a big part of it. Like the little cheap plastic one. Hang on. Turn the gate off for a second. So I had this tambourine for forever. It's the little plastic one you go to Guitar Center and get. True Colors. It's fine, as you can hear. It's fine. It's a little plastic sounding. And then I bought this one, which was, it was maybe like $20, $30, a little more, but it's wooden. It's got two different types of metal on it. I don't know anything else about it, but it just sounds more like what I want a tambourine to sound like. It took more work in the mix to make this one work. This one just sounds right out of the gate. So that's what I would tell you. Make sure you got a good tambourine. A ribbon mic on a tambourine sounds fabulous. David says, I have the PreSonus Aris 5 monitors, and when I receive text on my phone, I get those annoying static noises. Is it my monitors or cheap cables? How are you connected to them? If you're using unbalanced cables, that'll do it. My little crap speakers here, the little Rolands, they do that, but they're really crappy and cheap and use really crappy cables. Not crap, it's just unbalanced. It's RCA. So I think if I got really fancy, expensive RCA cables, it might help, but I'm not going to do that. I just turn them off when I don't want them. That's not as helpful for you because these are your main speakers. Try better cables. You don't have to go like super high end, but even just if you're using HOSA unbalanced cables and you've got balanced connections, then go balance with like a Proco or something. $20 a cable. It's not super expensive, but cables are worth buying, especially if you get them like at Sweetwater. I get all the Proco cables from them. They have a lifetime warranty. So if it just stops working 5 years from now, I just send Luke an email, hey, that 20-foot XLR cable stopped working, and they ship me one. That's it. Like they don't want it back. It's kind of a honor system, but it's a great deal. So you buy them once, you never have to buy them again, which is pretty great. Something to keep in mind. Have you gotten Tobias says, have you gotten used to the sound of your new room yet? I'm getting there. Last I checked, this month's Dueling Mixes song, I think I'm winning the votes. which I mixed, was one of the first songs I mixed in here. It doesn't have as much bass as I like to hear. So I have to keep that in mind. When I really want to push the kick and bass, I have to use some discretion there. But it's a bigger room, and it's treated pretty well given the stuff that I have around. So it's working fine. I think bigger rooms, in my opinion, in my experience, are a little more forgiving. Just there's more room for the sound to like get out there and do its thing than smaller, tighter spaces. And I imagine acoustic people would agree with me on that. How do you set your mix pricing? I take how much I want to make per hour. I guesstimate how long I think a mix is going to take me on average, and then I do the hour times that, and that is my rate for the song. I don't charge by the hour to mix. That way I think it puts all the pressure on me to get it done in that amount of time. If I mix it faster, if I estimated 4 or 5 hours and I mix it in 1 and it's an amazing work and the client's happy, great. End of story. I just made a lot more per hour than I would have if it took me 5 hours, but the client is still, it's just like, if I want to sell you this phone and I say, give me $500 for this phone, it doesn't matter if I paid $1 million for this phone or if I paid $1,000 for this phone. Like, as long as you get what you want for $500, it doesn't matter. That's a bad example, but it doesn't really work at all. Never mind. Jonathan Knopf has a new EP that just came out. Congrats, dude. It's on Bandcamp or Spotify. It is recorded and mixed and mastered by Jonathan. It's called Sever the Ties, also available on iTunes. So go check that out. Let me. If I don't do it now, I'll forget, but I'd love to check it out. Fun little fact. This is going to make me sound like a curmudgeon. I get, as you can imagine, I get a fair amount of people emailing me saying, I want to give you a gift, and it's my music. Let me know what you think. It's not really a gift when you're saying, hey, I want you to sit down for an hour and listen to something. So just I'm not saying you did this, Jonathan. Actually, I know you, and I want to hear what you've been working on, so you just said it was out there. But something about that whole, here's a gift for you, it's not really a gift, if that makes sense. I don't know why I said that. Now I sound like just a grumpy old man. Okay, Sever the Ties. I have it now it's downloading to all my devices. So, cool. I'll check that out. Doodle-a-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo. Greetings from India. I'm struggling with my mix because of my monitors. I have a pair of BX8s. I saw how you vouch for M Audios. I asked around and no one here has them. Any substitutes you prefer? Well, the BX8s are M Audio. So hold on. I don't think the monitors are the problem. Unless the monitors aren't working, especially big 8-inch monitors, like a lot of the problems people face is they have really small monitors. So the monitor literally doesn't produce the low frequencies, so they just can't hear the bass. So what sounds good in their studio sounds boomy everywhere else. I'm glowing. Am I glowing? I am. I guess I am kind of glowing. They can't reproduce the low frequencies, so that's the real problem. They need speakers they probably need acoustic treatment that helps the room not suck up all the bass, and they need speakers that will reproduce those low frequencies. For you, BX8s are 8-inch monitors. They have plenty of low end. If your mixes aren't coming out how you want them, it's you and your ability as a mix engineer and recording engineer. It's not the speakers. Now, are there better speakers out there? Yes. Just like I could play a $500 guitar or a $5,000 guitar. If I can't play the $500 one, getting the $5,000 one isn't going to do me any extra good, right? So you got to focus. I could be wrong. Maybe your speakers are blown, but my guess is the problem is more you and your ability and experience and knowledge and practice level, not the speakers themselves. Joe, you're a PreSonus guy. What's up, Adam? I'm having issues with my central station. How is their customer service / repair? Should I send it to them or to a local repair shop? Adam, I've not had to have anything repaired by them, but in just my general experience is they're really popular, and I don't think, my opinion, they haven't staffed their support team as in the same way, like to meet the demand of all the customers they have. So it seems to me like they're a little bit backlogged and don't respond to text support stuff really quickly, and their on hold thing is always really long. And I know their business, they got to figure out that cost. But if you've got a place that'll repair it, I'm guessing it's simple electronics stuff, especially if it's not under warranty anyway. I would look in that route because I think you might just, between the time it takes to ship it and get it back, and the fact that, like, they'll do stuff quickly for me, but that's because I've done a lot of videos for them and I've got a relationship. But for the average customer, I don't know how fast it is. So I would go probably lean towards something local if you can. Because again, it's not like there's lots of, I don't know electronics, but I would think a central station is pretty simple electronically. I could be wrong. I don't know. Do you have a new production assistant working the computer? No, that would be me in my hand. I'm screen sharing. I'm looking on my laptop to see this screen over here. How silly is that? Gary says, "What's up, Gary? Demoing my vocal." By the way, Gary, that song you sent me, email me. We need anyway, we want to use it. It was the bouncy one. Anyway, I'll go back and I've got an email. I just haven't responded yet. Demoing my vocals for February for the RPM challenge. Never really thought about proximity effect before. Can you detail a little about how to control it and still sound up front? So the thing I used to talk about, how back away from the microphone, you'll get rid of that boominess, that proximity effect. I have done a complete 180 on that. I like to get right up on the mic. It depends on the microphone. It's mostly just your ears. If you get to a certain closeness and it's just big and boomy and bad sounding, and you just know it already, then back off a little bit. But I found I had more problems the more I backed away from a lot of microphones with sibilance and brightness, because something about being farther away from the mic it's like that high end developed more, and it became just a real problem, and there wasn't a lot of bigness and warmth to it. So I've done kind of a 180. A part of that was using mics like the Mini K47 from Roswell. It just sounded better up close. It wasn't excessively boomy, and anything a little farther away on my voice or on a couple different females that I recorded just didn't sound as good, even from about 8-9 inches away. It ended up being like right 3-4 inches really was where it sounded better. So the thing is, if it's not excessive low end and it's just a little bit of low end, a high pass filter solves the problem when you go to mix. But you can't get that bigness back. But yeah, that K47 is fabulous. Really, really good. For sure. And it's cheap. It's one of those, like, I've used expensive microphones and they're great and they kind of turn your head sometimes, but this is one of, I haven't owned a lot of expensive mics. Just because I feel like I can get good results with the others. Samuel, thank you for, I was talking about the monitors and how you might need to get better at mixing. Thank you for not taking that. I really do. The only reason I say things like that is because I really do want you to get better. And I don't want you to go down a rabbit trail of saving up all your money and spending thousands of dollars on speakers that don't make a difference. I want you to be making incredible mixes a year from now. And I don't think the speakers are going to get you there. What do you think of sunglasses in the studio? Man, I'm not cool enough. I'm not cool enough to pull that off, but if I was, I'd wear them all day. I'm no Casey Neistat. Did it take your ears time to start hearing, this is from, what's up, Dewey, to start hearing subtle changes in EQ, compression, and so forth? In other words, did you have to train your ears? Yes, but I didn't. I've seen these apps and things that like let you train your ears. Switch this up a little bit. There's nothing on my screen for you to see. I've seen these apps where like train your ears, and I don't have any problem with them. Like I know like Pro Audiophiles has their Quiz Tones app that lets you kind of, and it's great. I just prefer to train my ears like doing the thing, right? I'd rather learn about compression while I'm mixing a record than sitting down and doing compression exercises, if that makes sense. I think there's probably some value there, especially like if you take my Understanding EQ or Understanding Compression courses. I do a lot of just sitting and listen to this. Okay, this is what I want you to listen for. Now listen for it. Now let's talk about it. I think that kind of guidance is helpful because otherwise you're just listening to everything, and I might be honing in on this particular sound, and you're over here thinking about this sound, and we're not on the same page. So yes, it does take time, just like anything. Like when you first start playing guitar, you don't notice the guitar is out of tune until it's really out of tune. Or then you get to a point like I can hear if it's just slightly out of tune because I've been playing for so long. And honestly, it's more of a curse than a blessing because if I hear something out of tune, I can't think of anything else other than the fact that that guitar is out of tune. So, which is funny because I put out live recordings where my guitar is out of tune. It's kind of funny. In that live setting, I don't hear it as much as in the studio. So I think it does take time, and it takes a lot of mistakes, and it takes probably the best way I've seen to speed that up, and as self-serving as this sounds, having somebody walk you through it, whether it's my course, you understand EQ, compression, things like that, or someone that is down the road that you know personally that can sit down for an afternoon and just go through, and then they do something and you say, hey, why did you do that? Those are helpful moments because it can help kind of skip over a bunch of the problems you have. It doesn't help you skip over. It helps you maybe fast forward through some of the drudgery of trying to do it on your own. But yeah, so Dewey says he's seen those videos. So at that point, it's just a repetition thing. I know how to play a G major chord on guitar. I'm just not great at it yet. I'm gonna keep just playing and playing and playing and playing and playing and playing. And at some point, you don't realize it, but you've suddenly become good at it. Why do you still have the fader port there? What do you use it for? Up until today, the mixer here is just a mixer. So not controlling the software at all. The fader port is my transport control, so stop, rewind, record. Also, I do some automation on there. So if I'm doing riding a guitar track up and down, I use that fader to move the fader in my software. Now that they've released DAW mode for the Studio Live, or a beta version of it, theoretically I should be able to do all that on the mixer itself. It's to be seen if the workflow is one that I will connect with and it doesn't slow me down, because I'm used to the way I do it. With my current setup, if I have the mouse, the magic trackpad right next to the fader port, and I'm always just switching back and forth, and I like that move. So it'll have to really blow me away for me to switch. Israel says reference tracks. I listen much on "Love Will Keep Us Alive" from the Eagles, but that is an already mastered track. Any suggestions? Yeah, of course, all your references are going to be mastered. That's just the nature. So you're not trying to match volume. So whenever I reference something, my references come down this fader right here. It's always a good 6 to 10 dB lower in volume than what I'm mixing, because what I'm mixing isn't mastered. So you're not going to match the loudness of it, and you're not going to match the overall like limited sound, compressed sound of it, and that's fine. You're using a reference to reference balance. How loud is the vocal in relation to the drums? How big is the kick drum? Those types of things. Are the guitars really bright? Are the guitars really dark? Those are the things you're listening for, and that translates whether it's just a raw mix or a finished master. What is your mic you're using now? I'd like to look at it. Income tax time. Clifton, it's the AKG D5. Great handheld mic. We bought 4 or 5 of them for this new church plant I'm a part of. And I love singing through this through a PA with some wedges. It's a big, beefy, but bright and clear microphone. I've had this for years. When I worked at Sweetwater, AKG came in and said, hey, we got a new mic called the D5. I don't know if it was new, but they said, just try it. It's a way better mic than the SM58 was what they were saying. And so we listened to it and said, hey, that does sound good. I sold a few, ended up getting this one as like for free because I sold several of them. And yeah, I don't use it a ton, but obviously I've used it lately in this podcast because my SM7 is dead, which is funny. That's another Shure microphone. Interesting. Anyway, I love my SM7, but it's it's $300 versus $100 for this one or so. I'm planning on getting PreSonus Monitor Station V2. I have a nano patch now. It came with my JBL 305. Just haven't gotten a chance to get a monitor station. What's your take on it? I think it's great. I got the central station as a part of like a deal where I got a bunch of stuff in once. And I like it a lot. It's great, and it's pristine, all that, signal path, blah, blah, blah. And I like that it's rack mountable. The monitor station is almost, to me, more fun because it sits on your desk and it just looks cool. And it does most of the things the central station does. And it's a great setup. Oh, I went through all this about this mic sitting in front of me, and you want to know about the recording mic? The mic that I used to record vocals a lot lately is the Roswell Pro Audio Mini K47. They sell them mostly just direct. I know they're in a few stores. They're not in like Sweetwater and things like that yet, but it's a great mic. $250, $300, something like that. So, yes, Johnny, I got to download and try out DAW mode ASAP. I've agreed to do a series of videos on it with PreSonus, but I got to learn it first. So, we shall see. All right, folks, my time is up. Thank you for hanging out with me. This has been, as always, super fun. If you can make it next week, I will be back. I'll be back next week, and then I'm heading to NAMM. So make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'll have videos from NAMM and all my friends that I'll get to see and all that fun stuff. So that's all for today, folks. I'll see ya.